One thing about being a woman in the Mormon church is that most likely at some point you're going to run into somebody in the church who will lecture you or make you feel bad about the amount of kids that you're going to have, the amount of kids that you do have, or the point at which you choose to have kids. For me, this was actually one of my best friends. It was somebody that I grew up with. And she came from a family that had 8 kids, so it kind of makes sense that she was the person that was going to give me this lecture. But basically, I got married. I was only 19. I had just turned 19 when I got married to a returned missionary. I was doing everything right. And we were not ready to have kids right away, and she asked me about it. Just like a couple months after we were married, she sent me a message on Facebook and asked me when we were going to try having kids. And I told her straight up, we barely have enough money to support ourselves. Both my husband and I lost our jobs. We worked at the same place, and that company shut down like a week before our wedding. So we had both lost our jobs very unexpectedly, and we were basically living off the money that we had received at our wedding. So I told her, we are not in a financial position to have kids yet. And we just want to enjoy being married and enjoy each other's company. So we're probably going to wait at least a couple years before we try having kids. And I didn't hear back from her for a couple hours. And then when I finally did hear back, she sent me just a bunch of links to talks from church leaders and quotes from prophets and apostles talking about the fact that you should not delay in having kids, that you should basically be getting married and starting to have children as soon as you can. And if you feel like you don't have the money for it, if you're not financially prepared, if you haven't gotten the schooling and education that you want, none of that stuff matters because the Lord will provide a way. And then, she sent her own little personal blurb to go along with it, basically saying that same thing, saying, I know that these prophets and apostles are called of God and they speak the truth. They speak for God, and this is what God wants, and you should not delay having children. And I was really I guess I shouldn't have been surprised because, like I said, she came from a family of 10 people. But she wasn't married. She was older than me, and not married, and, wasn't even in a serious relationship. And so I remember being like, that's kind of big of you to be giving me lectures about getting married and having children super quickly when I'm younger than you and I already have a husband. But anyway, the fact is that as a woman growing up in the Mormon church, you're taught from a very young age and through your adolescence that your number one calling in life is to be a wife and a mother. And so even if you haven't internalized that message enough on your own, which would be kind of surprising considering half our lessons in our young women's classes are about homemaking and motherhood. If you haven't internalized that lesson enough yourself, you're going to have somebody in your life as a Mormon that pushes that message on you. Now, luckily, from what I've heard from current Mormons, this whole idea is sort of changing. A lot of stuff in the Mormon church is changing. Apparently crosses are okay now because the church changed all of its little Moroni's on Google Maps to crosses instead, even though the cross is basically sinful within Mormonism when I was a kid. They've also changed the garments. So the garments, you can show your shoulders now, which again used to be a sin. I grew up in a Mormon church where we were shamed for showing our shoulders. We were taught that we were walking pornography if we were dressed immodestly, and that we were, basically harlots and leading men away from Christ. And from what I've heard, another thing that's changing is that the church is not pushing women to only be a wife and a mother as much as they once did. There were prophets back in the day who completely discouraged women from ever finding a job outside of the home because that wasn't their path in life. Their purpose was to be a wife and a mother. And how can you be a wife and a mother if you have a job outside the home? And I think it's good that the church is no longer pushing this message so hard, but it would be nice if instead of just slowly backing off on it and quietly deleting stuff like that from their website and their, Ensign articles and stuff, if they would instead like come out and disavow it. Just say like, the prophets that said that were speaking as men of their time. They were not speaking for God, and women have more purpose in their life than just being a wife and a mother. They won't do that, but it would be nice if they did. Anyway, I'm curious if anyone else had a similar experience to this as a woman in the church.